Welcome back to Tartarian Tales 62, and this one is going to be about the city of Jaggarnat, and I wonder if this is where the term juggernaut came from. I'm not really sure, and again, I'm going to show some pictures of a place called Puri now, but I've tracked it down, and I believe this is what the passage from Voyages and Travels, this old book, is talking about. I'm not 100% positive. If it is something else, someone please let me know. But this, I think, is it. I tried to match the pictures with the place of the Tartarian Tales, and I added some other pictures throughout time and of places around it and whatnot. So you'll get to check it out. But this place is pretty sweet. And as of now, it's kind of referred to on Google Earth, which I'll show you, as Sri Jagannath Temple in Puri. Puri. And wow, it's an amazing place, and it's supposedly in the shape of a conch shell from above. See if you can spot it, but right along the coast, right, this matches up with what I think is in this Tartarian Tales, because it was a seagoing vessel, an explorer that got there, and so I think this is a good candidate. But again, correct me if I'm wrong. But look at this place, designed as a conch shell. And an amazing, just buildings all over the place, temples all over the place. And did that create a certain frequency, visual or just auditory or spiritual, that we don't even know about? A whole kind of system, again, of energies that they could be working with and could have been masters of, that just because you can't see doesn't mean it didn't exist. So we'll see. I found this clipping to be very nice that I'm going to read for the Tartarian Tales, so I think you all will like it. It's from a very trusted and great book. I'll include the link below. Here is the Google Earth as we zoom into beloved India, right along the coast. Incredible place. But yeah, look at that square, that giant rectangle over there. I thought that was pretty interesting. Had to do a little brief pause on the trip down, and it looks pretty amazing. It's tough to kind of spot the conch shell because of the way it's populated now, but you can scan through time and see that really not too much has changed in this area. Some more buildings, they've built a little more around it, but still no sign of what this was like in its prime, when that place was beaming. Probably more populated than it is presently, but in a different way. Back in the old day, when all the buildings were old, when that thing's power was truly being utilized, back before, way before this story that I'm going to read is from, to a time we can really only imagine about, unless someone digs up some kind of element of truth, some truly ancient book that just blows the minds of everything. Because the Hindus, the Jains, all of them over here, the Buddhists, these things are all connected to something eternal. And their stories are not just fantasies and little make-believe. They are something amazingly real about their belief system. And let's see, let's take a little dive in here and see what we can figure out. I like the way how these explorers kind of tell their own perspective, but they're very descriptive. So we'll see. Let's take a trip back in time. Here we go. Of William Bruton, on page 277, A Brief Relation of the Great City of Jaggarnat. Excuse my sniffles and wrong pronunciations, or different pronunciations. Here we go. The 5th day of November, I was sent about the company's business to the great city of Jaggarnat, and I traveled this day to a town called Madhu, and I lodged all night in a pagode or pagodo. The 6th day, I, William Bruton, traveled 8 course, which is 32 miles English, and came to a town named Ahmedpur, where I found, met together of men, women, and children, more than 3,000, and all of them were travelers and rangers of the country, having no residence, but are called Ashmen, because they cast ashes upon themselves. Also they are called fakirs, which are religious names given to them for their supposed holiness, but indeed they are very rogues, such as our gypsies are here in England. Interesting. When they see their time and opportunity to put roguery and villainy in practice. At this town I made no great stay, for I had good charge about me of the companies. The 7th day of November, in the morning, about 2 of the clock, I hasted from Ahmedpur over the passage and so for Jaggarnat, which was 10 course between, that is 40 miles English, to about the hour of 4 in the afternoon. I drew near to this great city of Jaggarnat, to which I passed over a great stone causeway, on either side whereof was a very goodly tank to wash in. This causeway was about half a mile in length, Then, as I came to the west end of the city, I entered into a very fair place for situation, furnished with exceeding store of pleasant trees and groves, and on either side of the way tanks of water, and pagods in the midst of them. From thence I passed up into the high street, where I was entertained by a Brahmin, which is one of their religious men, or idolatrous priests. But let his religion be what it would, into his house I went, and there I lodged all the time of my stay there. The 8th day of November, in the morning, after I had gone about the affairs that I was sent to do, I went to view the city in some part, but especially that mighty pagoda, or pagode, the mirror of all wickedness and idolatry. I wonder what he couldn't put in this, what he couldn't tell us, since this sounds like a more personal account. But here we go. The mirror of all... I've got to go back to that. I went to view the city in some part, but especially that mighty pagoda or pagode, the mirror of all wickedness and idolatry. Unto this pagode, or house of Satan, as it may rightly be called, belong 9,000 Brahmins or priests, which daily offers sacrifices unto their great god JAGGARNAT, from which idol the city is so called. And when he is but named, then all the people in the town and country bow and bend their knees to the ground, as Moabites did to their idol Baal Peor. Here they also offer their children to this idol, and make them to pass through the fire. And also they have an abominable custom to cause or make them pass through the water, as sacrifices unto this said ungodly god. This idol is in shape like a serpent, with 7 heads, and on the cheeks of each head it hath the form of a wing upon each cheek, which wings open and shut and flap, as it is carried in a stately chariot, and the idol in the midst of it, and one of the moguls sitting behind it in the chariot, upon a convenient place with a canopy, to keep the sun from injuring of it. When I, with horror, beheld these strange things, I called to mind the 13th chapter of the Revelations and 1st verse, and likewise the 16th and 17th verses of the said chapter, in which places there is a beast, and such idolatrous worship mentioned, and those sayings in that text are herein truly accomplished in the 16th ver, for the Brahmins are all marked in the forehead, and likewise all that come to worship the idol are marked also in their foreheads. But those that buy and sell are all marked in the left shoulder, and all such as dare or presume to buy and sell, not being marked, are most severely and grievously punished. It's kind of funny how every generation can relate to Revelations or link it, like the words of the Bible are really like uniformly designed to follow with with a lot of different instances, but who knows, and be timeless, universal. They have built a great chariot that goeth on 16 wheels of a side, and every wheel is 5 feet in height, and the chariot itself is about 30 feet high. Amazing. In this chariot, on their great festival days at night, they place their wicked god JAGGARNAT, and all the Brahmins, being in number 9,000, then attend this great idol, besides of Ashmen and Saccharies, some thousands or more than a good many. The chariot is most richly adorned with most rich and costly ornaments, and the aforesaid wheels are placed very complete in a round circle, so artificially that every wheel doth its proper office without any impediment. For the chariot is aloft, and in the center, betwixt the wheels, they have also more than 2,000 lights with them, and this chariot with the idol is also drawn with the greatest and best men of the town, and they are so eager and greedy to draw it, that whosoever by shouldering, crowding, shoving, heaving, thrusting, or any violent way can but come to lay a hand upon the ropes, they think themselves blessed and happy. And when it is going along the city, there are many that will offer themselves as a sacrifice to this idol, and desperately lie down on the ground, that the chariot wheels may run over them, whereby they are killed outright. Some get broken arms, some broken legs, so that many of them are so destroyed, and by this means they think to merit heaven. There is also another chariot, which hath but 12 wheels, and that is for an idol or a devil of an inferior rank or lower degree, and he goes not abroad or in progress, but when the Brahmins please. This pagodo is situated by the seaside, and is to be seen into the sea, at the least 10 or 12 leagues, for the air and sky is clear and pure in those parts, that it may be seen far. Remember that, because there's mysteries about these temples that I'm going to show at the end. There's like 10 mysteries from a recent article, and that's one of them, that the weather and things are weird around this pagoda. So again, that kind of links both these together. But here we go. This pagoda is situated in the seaside and is to be seen into the sea at least 10 or 12 leagues, for the air and sky is clear and pure in those parts that it may be seen far. It is included with a wall of stone, much about 22 feet in height, and the enclosure is 4 square, and every square is 150 geometrical paces. So the 4 squares in the total are 600 paces, or yards about. It standeth due east, west, north, and south, and every square hath a great gate for the entrance into it. But the south and west gates are barred up till the festival times, and none commonly used but the north and east gates, but especially the north gate, for it hath all its prospect into the high or chief street of this city. Now in some other parts of this country the people adore and worship other creatures for their gods. Some worship the celestial, as the sun, moon, and stars. Some again terrestrial, and they of the mountains, valleys, and woods. Some aquatical, and those of the seas, rivers, and fountains. Some running after a beast like an ox, the dog, and the cat. Some after the hawk, some after the sheep, and some so foolish that they doted upon the very herbs and flowers in their gardens. For indeed they have very rare flowers for color, such as I have never seen in England or elsewhere. Some of this nation have erected to themselves a god in the likeness of Jupiter, and chain him by the leg in their pagoda, to the intent that he might not leave them, nor forsake them, and keep continual watch and guard night and day, lest any of their enemies should come and entice him away by bribery, and so to prevail with him to come forth of it, and by that means their city come to ruin and destruction. So much for their idolatry. This city of Bengala is very great and populous. It hath many merchants in it, and yieldeth very rich commodities, as good cloth in abundance, sugars, silks, tacitas, stuffs, wax, gumlac, butter, oil, rice, and wheat, with many other good commodities vendible. It is likewise famous for its multitude of rhinoceroses. It hath a beast much like unto a unicorn, and because it hath but one horn, some believe and take it for the unicorn's horn, for the virtue it hath in it. This city was once free from taxations, till Ehebar, the great Mogul, caused it to be united to his empire, possibly Tartarian. The chiefest cities which join nearest to it are Katagan and Satagan, on the banks of the Ganges eastward. It was once the seat of the great Bengalian king, Malchiram, as Mr. Purchas relates in his pilgrimage. This city lies westward toward Pegu, and near to Kazmin and Arakam, 2 famous cities for traffic and situation, lying upon the river and within some few leagues of the gulf called the Bengalian Gulf, which is a very dangerous one. For at some certain times of this year it is very hazardable for vessels to pass without shipwreck. There are many other lakes and rivers which I could mention, but for brevity's sake I omit them. But there is no strong drink suffered to be drank within the city, except a stranger bring it in privately, and so it is not known, and thus much shall suffice for the impious religion of Jaggernat in the stately court of Malcandy. So they don't get drunk, they must be primitive devil worshippers. The most of these people have no learning, but do all things by memory. They wear commonly long hair. That's because they don't drink. They have a nice memory. They wear commonly long hair and are very strict in their time of fasting. But when the ceremony is over, they freely commit all kind of wickedness again. In some places they have their edicts or laws written, and in other places unwritten. They know not what belongs to bonds or bills, and they lend without witnesses, or any sealing of writings, even upon their own words. And he that is found to deny his promise hath the tops of his fingers cut off. Their habit is various and different, and some of them go in linen and woolen, some are clothed with beast skins or birds' feathers, others go naked and cover only their secret parts. Their bodies are for the most part black, which is not accidental, but naturally arising from the quality of the seed or feed they are begotten. Most of them are of a large stature. They have many wives, which they purchase and buy of their parents. Some they keep to be their vassals, to do their drudgery, others which are handsomer for issue's sake and pleasure. Here are greater store of beasts than in any other part of the Indies, as oxen, camels, lions, dogs, elephants. They have dogs which are fierce as lions, with which they usually hunt and pursue those wild beasts, as we do our bucks for their delight and pleasure. They ride on goodly horses, booted and spurred, so likewise do their women. These people are notable ingenious men, let it be in what art or science soever, and will imitate any workmanship that shall be brought before them. For the most part of them hate idleness, and those that do not study in some art or other are counted drones, and stand for ciphers and dead men amongst the best and chiefest sort of people. They have a custom that always before dinner they call their children and young people in their houses together, and examine how they had spent their time from the sun rising. And if they could not give a good account of it, they were not to be admitted to the table. And so every day, and if they did not the next time improve themselves in some knowledge of laudable things, they are most severely punished or chastised. Besides the punishment, I like that idea of having to name something at the end of the day that you've done today or learned or something. That's an amazing thing. I actually might incorporate that into my own world. These barbarous and idolatrous people, although they be so ignorant in the true worship of God, cannot endure a perjured person, nor a common swearer, nor a common drunkard, but will punish them very severely by stripes, or else by forfeiture of their commodities. A perjured person, say they, is an arch enemy to their God and them, and it is so hateful that it will if it be committed by their father, brother, or kindred, they presently condemn him, according to the nature of the offense. For though they love the perjury, by reason of the benefit that cometh unto them by yet they hate the person even to death. For say they, he who was sometimes perjured in their behalf may undo what he hath done, and speak the truth when time serves. They instance a story of Solomon the great Turk, who loathed and abhorred the traitor that betrayed Rhodes unto him. And instead of his daughter, whom he expected to be given him in marriage for a reward, he caused him to be flayed and salted, and told him in derision that it was not fit for a Christian to marry with a Turk, unless he put off his old skin. Likewise, they instanced Charles IV, who rewarded the soldiers that betrayed their lord and master Crantius, which counterfeit coin, and being desired to deliver them current money, answered that counterfeit coin was the proper wages for counterfeit service. Thus a liar or perjured person amongst these idolatrous people they will not believe, though he had spoken of or sworn the truth. For he that hath been once false is ever to be suspected in the same kind of falsehood. And I agree with that as well. I've always kind of felt that way. Wherefore just and upright dealing is aptly compared to a glass, which being once broken can never be repaired, or to opportunity, which once omitted can never be recovered. And so I conclude this relation, wishing all men to prefer knowledge and honesty before wealth and riches. The one soon fadeth, the other abideth forever. For amongst all the goods of this life, only wisdom is immortal. That is awesome. I love that. I love the insight and the wisdom from these travelers. And I've always noticed that in my own world as well. Whenever I travel, I always happen to meet someone amazing, someone somewhere. And each time period of my life, I always have some kind of mentor that helps with a certain degree. I at one point befriended an old guy in a jam space, an old homeless guy who lived at this jam space. And he taught me so many different things about the world that I would have never heard elsewhere. And a lot of people shrugged the guy off, but I definitely didn't. There's always someone in our lives that kind of comes in and offers us insight. And these guys have been traveling the world, and they're from a totally different time, but they have similar mentalities to us. And I find that really cool to be able to learn from them, and what they think is terrible and what they think is amazing is kind of interesting, because they're totally different. They're observing people. This guy who wrote this is observing a people that he knows nothing about. He's just coming across them for the first time, but yet thinks they're devil worshippers, but then sees them as he describes them as being clean, pure, and all this other stuff. So it's, you have to do your own thinking every time you hear these stories, and take what you take and use your own impression of it as if you're there, but with the mindset that we have now, which is a lot cooler. So take a look at this next section right here. I wanted to share this because this area, which I think that story is partly from, is either way, this temple of Puri has some magic to it. So if it's not the same place, then we'll see. But I think this is the pagoda that he was talking about being visible from the leagues of the sea. And if it is, then there's no telling what this thing was capable of. If that chariot had several thousand lights, imagine what those pagodas would look like at night and how cool that would be. And also, if you check the Google Earth that I had before, there's a nice huge main street leading to the north gate of this place, so that's another thing that makes me also think I am right about the place. But either way, check out these 10 magical things regarding this place. And as you can see, this JAGGARNAT temple, I think, was referred to as JAGGARNAT back in the day. And I'm not sure, again, if Juggernaut has anything to do with this. Maybe there were giants here. This guy describes them as being very tall, very large stature. So who knows? But here we go. Check this out, and thank you to the author for writing this, because this is pretty amazing. No fly zone. You might have seen a lot of birds perched over the temple walls or planes flying above them in other parts of India, but nothing flies above this temple. The site, which is a no-fly zone, has been declared so not by the state government, but by the divine towers of the temple. A rarity in India, this phenomenon has no explanations and remains a mystery. In that regards to the clear weather that was kind of around it before, there's something, what goes underneath? What was this true power? I think that is part of it. These were weather machines, maybe at one point, ways of guaranteeing good weather or controlling it at least and making it capable of building. Whether it's a ship sailing in the wind or a regular piece of cloth, it always follows the direction of the wind. However, the flag atop this temple is an exception to this rule, as it flies in the opposite direction of the wind without any scientific reasoning to back it up. So what, again, is that all about? Why would this center? And maybe that's just there to show some kind of current or energy connection that is invisible and separate from the wind. These can all be learned from and reverse engineered, I bet, still. The mystery of the Sudarshan chakra. The chakra fitted on top is about 20 feet high and weighs a ton. Without any heavy machinery available, the first question that arises is how it was fitted so high with just manual intervention during that period. The second is the architectural technique used behind the positioning of the something is visible from any corner of the city and irrespective of your position. The chakra always seems to be facing you. That is really cool too. I like that. That's another mystery of design and incorporating art into the universe and the masters of the physical properties of our world. The temple, Silence of the Ways. The temple has 4 doors, and Sindawaran is the main door to the temple. When you enter through this door, you can clearly hear the sound of the waves, but once inside the temple, you will no longer hear the sound of the waves. According to folklore, it was the will of Subhadra Mai to have serenity within the temple gates, and was duly fulfilled by the Lord. That is awesome. And again, their mastery of the invisible, of sound, of frequency, that just shows it. When sunlight falls on any part of the subject, it leaves a shadow on the other, which ultimately triggers shade. However, this temple is reported to have no shadow at all at any time of the day. Whether it is an engineering marvel or a divine force is still unknown and debatable. Now that I can't even fathom to explain. And again, someone tell me if this is true, if they've ever been there. Are these just myths? But wow, shadow, that is pretty impressive. I don't know how you do that. It's like this is creating some kind of force field or energy mastery. Climbing of the priest. Every day, a priest climbs the walls of this temple, which has a height approximately of a 45-story building. This is done without any protective gear and will easily put any professional climber to shame. It is believed that if this is skipped even for a day, then the temple will be shut down for a long 18 years. This ritual is close to 1,800 years old. So, wow, our ancients were masters, and this is more proof, again. The food is never wasted here. Not a single morsel of food gets wasted here. As per records, depending on the day, anywhere between 2,000 to 20,000 people visit the temple, but the quantity of prasadam cooked remains the same every day, yet it never gets wasted or is insufficient for the devotees. Wow, that's amazing. I always wondered how restaurant people predict food, because I always try to predict art for markets, and it's tough, but doing it with food, things that spoil, is always tough, and these people don't have to worry because they're protected by divine intervention. Cooking technique. The prasadam here gets cooked in a special way using pots and firewood. 7 pots are used for this by placing them on top of each other. However, the contents of the topmost pots gets cooked first, followed by the bottom pots. So just, again, defying any type of sense or science or anything. And what did they create? Maybe this is a sign of what's underneath, or what connection to some kind of realm or some kind of power, that force of something that was used here, some magnetic, some invisible something that they mastered that we lost. The disintegration of deities. Every 14 to 18 years, the dirties are buried one above another, or deities, replaced by new ones. These deities are made up of neem wood and are believed to disintegrate on their own. Very interesting. Again, I wouldn't be surprised. There's probably a certain place here, you place them and then just holy light melts them or something. I wouldn't be surprised. These places are amazing. There's still some glimmer of ancient mastery left. Reverse gear of the breeze. In any other part of the world, it is known that during daytime, the breeze from sea comes to land and the wind from the land blows toward the sea during the evening. However, in Puri, the exact opposite happens, reversing geographical laws. Amazing. So what is it? Is there something underneath this? Is there something here at some point? Is this a blessed? Is this an underground tunnel to Agartha, the center of the earth, the hollow earth? Any of those magical, amazing things? I have no idea, but it's amazing to kind of hear about people seeing them and seeing this area and the things that were going on here. The chariot could have strode through this area, could have been built here. The mud flood could have unveiled tons more to this place than we can see at this present time. There could have been a lot more. These could have been covered in metals, could have been covered in jewels, precious everything, a lot more kinetic sculptures. The whole thing could be kinetic. There's so much to tell because we don't know, and we're just seeing the bones of this ancient mastery, this ancient machinery. And nowhere is it more present that it is machinery, and it is the remnants of something magnificent with a purpose beyond just being a sacred place. Everything is connected. Everything was necessary. Everything was perfect. All the frequencies, all the invisible forces that they accounted for must have had some massive visible forces, invisible affecting with people's health or mentalities or mindset or anything. You know that it had power. It had probably so much that we can't even fathom, and it seems like all the generations that had the stories are lost. All we have to really go by is myth, ancient text, and hope that we can find and piece together these things and somehow get one of these machines to work. If someone can one day create a machine like this, even on a minimal scale, but I have a feeling it probably has to be pretty massive. So if there's any way to just reignite one of these ancient machines or ancient palaces or something, it would be so cool and so awesome to just see even more of a glimpse. We need to see the next step of what these buildings were capable of so that we can piece that around and imagine what it was like all over this time when these were all in their prime. Not when the reset populations were inhabiting them and just wandered and just kind of looted and did all these things to them, but when they were actually built, by who, and for what true purpose. Hopefully we can figure that all out. Hope you all enjoyed this. Thank you so much for checking it out, and bless you all.